I have been reading this book for months now. I don't even like it, and yet for some reason this book stays on my bedside table as the book that I'm reading. And I just can't let it go and start reading another book that I might actually enjoy. Why? Because I want to finish what I started. What I'm describing is the sunk cost fallacy, and it doesn't just apply to books. It can apply to careers, study majors, hobbies, or even relationships. The basic definition of the sunk cost fallacy is the feeling of having invested too much time into something to quit, even though you want to. For example, working 10 years pursuing a certain career path only to realize now you don't actually enjoy doing the work. But starting your career over in a different field that you might actually enjoy more feels like you're wasting the time and effort you've already put in to your current career. So instead, you just stick it out. You can be in a bad or even abusive relationship and think, well, I've already been with them for 5 years. Things could get better if we just work on it more. I've been in both of these situations. I'm currently thinking if I should switch careers because sometimes I don't think I'm suited for the job that I have. But then I think about all the money I've spent on equipment and the dozen years of experience going to waste. And I've been in a relationship where I wasn't even that happy, yet I was still ready to get married and start a family just because it was the longest relationship I had been in at the time. The reason this is so pervasive with so many people nowadays is that when we were children, we were constantly told to never give up, never quit. But I'm here to say you're allowed to quit. Not as soon as something doesn't go your way or you start struggling a little bit. But if the reason you want to quit something is only because you feel like you've invested too much, then you're allowed to quit. There's a difference between the discomfort of just starting something and actually not enjoying something. There's a quote by Ira Glass that I just love. It goes,
all of us who do creative work, we get into it, and we get into it because we have good taste. But it's like there's a gap that for the first couple of years that you're making stuff, what you're making isn't so good, okay? It's not that great. It's really not that great. It's trying to be good. It has ambition to be good, but it's not quite that good. But your taste, the thing that got you into the game, your taste is still killer. And your taste is good enough that you can tell that what you're making is kind of a disappointment to you. A lot of people never get past that phase. A lot of people at that point, they quit.
It's important to be able to identify if you love the process of doing something. The thing that has kept me going in my video and photography career is the feeling when everything just comes together. Like how I just happened to capture an amazing throw and catch on my secondary video camera that was so unexpected that I missed it with my photo camera, but was able to use it in a reel. Or when the lighting and the subject and a little bit of Photoshop come together for, in my mind, a pretty awesome photo. But if you hate your work, aren't happy in a relationship, or just can't quit an investment that is hemorrhaging money, you might be trapped in a sunk cost fallacy. And because it's a cognitive bias, it's all based on emotions. And those pesky emotions keep messing things up for us. The psychological factors that contribute to it are loss aversion, the framing effect, optimism bias, and an unwillingness to appear wasteful. Loss aversion is super simple. Winning $100 feels pretty good, but losing $100 feels horrible. So winning that amount of money will make us a little happier, but losing that same amount of money will make us miserable. Because of this, we will go out of our way to avoid losing at all costs, even if it means doing something that will not let us win. In the sunk cost fallacy, that means sticking with your decision, because quitting or losing just feels so much worse than just continuing on, even if you're never going to be happy or win. The framing effect has to do with how other people see us based on the choices that we make. This can be used positively as well, like when you tell your friends that you're going to run a marathon. And the pressure of not wanting to be seen as a failure can motivate you to continue working out. But what if after 2 weeks you actually realize you hate running? Will you quit? publicly? Or will you keep going and hate every single second of it just so that you're not seen as a failure? Then we have optimism bias. We like to overestimate the chances of our efforts to bear fruit in the end, especially if we've invested time or money. Having studied filmmaking, spending money on equipment, and years gaining experience makes me unrealistically optimistic that the next job interview will finally be successful. When, in actuality, maybe I should be thinking about changing careers instead. Finally, we have the desire to avoid waste. Just like the book that I'm reading. I don't want the money that I spent on it or the time I invested reading it to go to waste. Just like if you buy a ticket for a movie and after 30 minutes you realize that it's not that great, but instead of walking out, you just sit there and finish watching the movie. So now that we know why we are so prone to the sunk cost fallacy, how do we avoid it? Well, actually, a lot of people don't know this, but there's this button on the back of your head that if you push it, it turns off all emotions. Now, I mean, could you imagine? That would be amazing. Yet, using data-based decisions would be a great way to avoid the sunk cost fallacy. But I know it's not always that simple. We can't always let data decide our personal lives. This might be more of a method for business decisions. If a project that you have a personal investment in isn't doing so well, then looking at and trusting the data might be a good way to decide whether to continue or not. But the best method for avoiding the sunk cost fallacy is one that you already know by now: being aware of it. Just knowing what it is and how it manifests and why we're prone to it can help us recognize it when we're letting our emotions control our actions. When you want to quit something but just can't seem to do it, you can try and identify why you're resisting. Is it because of loss aversion, or do you think your friends and family will see you as a failure? Do you unrealistically believe things will just magically work out, or do you just not want to waste all the time and effort that you've already put in? I know these are hard questions to answer and even harder to act on, but the sunk cost fallacy can be what is stopping you from leading a happier life. Just because our emotions are stopping us from making an uncomfortable decision that will benefit us in the long run. And now, if you'll excuse me, I am going to take the bookmark out of this book and actually start reading something that I've been looking forward to for 2 months. Peace.